Senator Nelson. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for House Bill 30. Secretary will read the caption.
Would you just come right on ahead?
Substitute House Bill 30 relating to the transfer of certain appropriations to the Texas Education Agency and the adjustment of appropriations for public school finance.
You're recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do move to suspend the regular order of business to take up and consider the committee substitute to House Bill 30. Committee substitute to House Bill 30 provides an additional $311 million for public education in the current budget cycle. This is additional funding on top of the $59.9 billion already in the budget. This bill provides the appropriation for House Bill 21, sponsored by Senator Larry Taylor, as it left the Senate Education Committee, specifically $150 million for hardship grants to help our ASSETAR districts, $60 million for the existing debt allotment, $60 million for charter school facilities, and $41 million for the small district adjustment. Now, there will be amendments that will align with what we just did with House Bill 21, and that will add on and anticipated, if the amendments pass, $40 million for dyslexia and autism as per Senator Huffman's amendment, and $212 million for TRS care, which I anticipate in another amendment, for a grand total of $563 million. To avoid a duplicate appropriation, the committee substitute to House Bill 30 will only take effect if the Senate version of House Bill 21 passes and becomes law. It is my hope that we can cover these costs via supplemental budget next session. However, if necessary, the method of finance will be a 2-week deferral of the August 2019 payment to managed care organizations. It is our intent that MCOs would be paid back immediately in September of 2019 without any disruptions of services. Members, both chambers of the legislature have demonstrated a strong interest in providing additional resources to education. We are still discussing with the House how they should be allocated, how they should be financed, but rest assured that every member of this legislature wants to ensure that we are properly educating our children and preparing them for success. Mr. President, I move suspension.
Senator Garcia, for what purpose?
To ask the author a quick question.
You.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator, let me make sure I heard you right. You said this is strictly to fund the Senate version of the bill that we just passed.
Right. What you see before you reflects, well, let me take that back. What you see before you reflects what passed out of the Senate Finance Committee. Tonight, we added on $40 million for dyslexia and autism, and I believe there is an amendment that would add on the 212 TRS care, so that this would be a funding mechanism for all of those things.
So this aligns with what the action that we just took.
After we adopt the amendments,
that we heard the chairman say they would be going to conference. If there's changes made in conference,
exactly,
then this will not apply.
Well, I would assume those same changes would be made.
Well, but if there's any change that's different than what we did,
correct.
Would you be changing this, or does this bill just die?
No, I would anticipate changing this to reflect exactly what we do with House Bill. What was the number? 21. Thank you.
Yeah, but my question was, if there's a change that's agreed to in conference that is different than what we just passed, will you then be coming to us for a change in House Bill 30?
I don't think we have. In fact, I wasn't even convinced that we had to have this bill, but the House felt very strongly about having a bill that reflected the funding mechanism of what we were doing in House Bill 21.
No, well, I understand that part. Right, my concern is if in conference committee,
we will change this bill to reflect what is done in conference committee.
We will. So that
is my intention, yeah.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that because you first said emphatically that this would align us with the Senate action tonight. My concern was what happens if there's additional changes made in conference.
Yep.
So you will make those changes.
Parallel changes, yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes, sir.
the following amendment. Secretary will read the amendment.
My amendment? No. No, I don't think this is my amendment.
For amendment number 1 by Huffman, amend CSHB number 30 by adding the following appropriately numbered section.
Senator Huffman.
Thank you, members. This amendment simply provides for the appropriations to the teachers' retirement system in the amount of $212,000 that we discussed at length earlier today as it related to House Bill 21. I move adoption.
Mr. Nelson on the amendment.
Absolutely acceptable. This is what we just did.
Any objection? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. The following amendment. Secretary read the amendment.
Amendment number 2 by Huffman, amend CSHB number 30 as follows.
Senator Huffman.
Yes, members, this one is the appropriation for the autism and the dyslexic grant of $20 million for each grant for the 2-year program. And I'll just mention on the previous amendment, apparently I said 212,000, but it was 212 million. But I think the members knew what I meant. Spent a long evening. But move adoption of floor amendment number 2.
Senator Nelson.
It is acceptable.
Any objection? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. Following amendment. Secretary read the caption.
For amendment number 3 by Schwartner, amend CSHB number 30 in section 1B of the bill.
Senator Schwartner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is the requirement that the catch-up payment to HHSC for the MCO deferral, if the MCO deferral payment is utilized for the funding mechanism, if that makes this amendment assures that that catch-up payment will be made. Same thing that we adopted in HB 21 and move adoption.
Nelson.
It is acceptable.
Any objection? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. Following amendment. Secretary read the amendment.
For amendment number 4 by Menendez, amend CSHB number 30 by striking section 1B of the bill.
Senator Menendez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, members, this is simply a clarifying amendment, very similar to the amendment we heard by Senator Lucio on House Bill 21. The amendment simply seeks to ensure that the transfer of funds from the Health and Human Services Commission does not reduce any Medicaid services or eligibility in any way, shape, or form. Based on what happened a couple of sessions ago with a rider that we had for cost savings, it's made many of our constituents very nervous. It has been made very clear that the intended source of funding, we heard it today, the agreed to source of funding for this bill would be the deferred MCO payment. But however, HB 30 only states that the Health and Human Services Commission shall identify the strategies and objectives, is, I quote, in which the transfer is to be made. The bill does not make any mention of a deferred MCO payment, and I believe that we can agree that those affecting the services is not the intent of Chairman Taylor, and so the amendment simply seeks to ensure that the strategies and the objectives identified by Health and Human Services will not affect the Medicaid eligibility, benefits, or services. So, Mr. President and members, I move adoption of amendment number 4, which I see as a clarifying amendment that just to protect our constituents and the services that they're receiving.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Menendez, I absolutely agree with the intent of what you're trying to do, and that's make sure that no one is denied services. However, I ran this concept past the commission, and they tell me that this amendment could preclude most of, if not all, of our transfer. So I think it's very broad and could be construed in a number of ways. I have already committed multiple times to work with Health and Human to ensure that no services are disrupted, and that I will continue to do that. But because of that, because it could preclude the transfer, I'm going to have to resist the amendment.
I understand, like, and maybe if I don't know what we could do in terms of preventing another event like occurred when you simply asked in that rider, and you were very clear. I heard you say to them, go save the money, but don't affect anybody's services. We've written letters together to that effect. My concern is that if we don't put it in black and white letters, that maybe that would happen again. And so that's why I believe you, and I take you at your word. My concern is that when legislation that we pass gets put into action by people who aren't elected, sometimes they just feel that the words on that piece of paper, unless we're crystal clear, give them authority to do things that we don't want them to do.
Well, but I'm being told that to put it in black and white could preclude all of the transfer, which would kind of destroy what we're trying to do here. So I would, Mr. President, respectfully urge a no on the amendment.
The motion is on the amendment. Secretary, call the roll.
Bettencourt, Birdwell, Buckingham, Burton, Campbell, Creighton, Estes, Garcia, Hall, Hancock, Hinojosa, Alpine, Huffman, Hughes, Colcourse, Lucio, Menendez, Miles, Nelson, Nichols, Perry, Rodriguez, Schwartner, Sulliger, Taylor, Galveston, Taylor, Collin, Uresti, Watson, West, Whitmire, Zaffarini.
10 ayes, 21 nays. The amendment fails. Thank you, Senator. Senator Nelson, you recognize passage to third reading.
I would move passage to third reading.
Secretary will call the roll.
Bettencourt, Birdwell, Buckingham, Burton, Campbell, Creighton, Estes, Garcia, Hall, Hancock, Hinojosa, Huffines, Huffman, Hughes, Colcourse, Lucio, Menendez, Miles, Nelson, Nichols, Perry, Rodriguez, Schwartner, Sulliger, Taylor of Galveston, Taylor Collin, Uresti, Watson, West, Whitmire, Zaffarini.
26 ayes and 5 nays. The bill passes to final third reading.